Yeah, hold on. Let me go back up to the Abbott's house.
All right. So this is the Saturday morning call, and Cathal is at the Wat in Thailand. In fact, he's on this island and thinking about ordaining, and is worried about all of the rules about ordaining and the issue about laptops and cell phones. And so the point is that many monks have laptops and cell phones, but that the cell towers and the Wi-Fi are more spotty here in Thailand than other places. But the monks in the United States will not only have laptops and cell phones, but many of them have cars and drive. And the question is, where did the car come from? And the answer is that when guys ordained, they probably already have the car, because coming across the car would be an unusual situation. But a brother who buys a new car can give his old car to the monk. Now, it's socially unacceptable here in Thailand for the monks to drive, but in the United States, it's not socially unacceptable. And that's one of the considerations, is what's socially acceptable for a monk and what actually is part of the rules. And as we just talked a moment ago, the difference between a car and a horse, because in the time of the Buddha, monks didn't ride horses, nor did they ride in carts pulled by a horse. But they would take ferries, and in many cases, the Wat would have a boat, especially if it was on beside the water, and the monks would travel by boat in the time of the Buddha. So the question is a car closer to a boat than it is to a horse? And you said that cars are like horses only because of surface transportation. But in
Yeah.
fact, you can kick a car and it won't respond like you kick a boat. But if you kick a horse, he's going to he's going to have the feelings about it. And so, in that regard, a car is much more like a boat, which was, let's say, permissible in the time of the Buddha. And in fact, in the United States and probably many countries that are not, let us say, Buddhist by the community, where Buddhism is just beginning and spreading around, monks driving cars is much more common, much more frequent. And so had gotten into the issue about cell phones and laptops and what they could be used for, because they are excellent communication devices. Now, Achan Po, being of the old school, he doesn't own a car and he doesn't own a cell phone, but he does have a close friend who will take Achan Po any place he wants to go, and that he has a cell phone. So anybody, like if I want to contact Achan Po, the easy way to do it is to call his driver. So even though he doesn't own a car, he doesn't own a cell phone, but he has access to one, and he actually has a chauffeur, a chauffeured-driven old beat-up pickup truck. I know I've ridden in it. Well, he's probably had a new one, but that was 20 years ago. But the point that I'm making is that it's not the device itself; it's how it's being used.
Yeah. So
And that's the
I
training. So go ahead.
I can say I can understand a phone can have like you can have needs for a phone and leave it at the needs, like communication, just using it for calling, messaging, Skype, whatever, like that. But
Hmm.
the reality is, I've only ever used phones in more or less, I would say, more or less unwholesome ways. And that habit for me is very much almost I could say like my a large portion of my life was just online. So for me, I don't know if I'm communicating it well, because we had such different um, lives. So I feel like I just don't know if I can communicate well. How impactful like having a phone and laptop is for me. Like how
Well,
it's
so
like
these laptops and cell phones will be learning tools for you then.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was. Well, okay, yeah. And that's what I was saying. If I go on retreat, when I take away the phone or the laptop, right? When I was at Deep Bhavan, I was like, this is it, like 7 days without the phone. I got into such a profound state. I couldn't even imagine. I was like, I'm going to a Wat now. I'm ready to leave everything. I'm ready to die. Like I'm ready to just give it all up. And the what I wanted to see is, okay, well, okay, I have my phone now again. How long is it going to take for me to go back in that whirlpool of, or go back in the churning circle of using the same old habits? And it didn't take long. Didn't take long, maybe a month and a half, I would say. When I came to the Wat, about a month and a half after I came back, I was like using it almost in the exact same way I did before. Like just the way
A lack of mindfulness, going back into old habit patterns. Yes,
yeah,
I understand that. But you
So,
can't blame that on the cell phone.
yeah, I know. But the
Now,
cell phone is like the yeah, the cell phone is like the
time structuring, start think about it in the sense of how do you spend your time? What is your time structuring? Are you doing something wholesome and beneficial? Or are you doing something just to waste the time?
yeah, that's something I've been thinking about as well.
Okay. So let's talk about the issue of playing games for just a moment. You said that when you were young, when things would go wrong, or you would have trouble at school, or there was a bully, or you got criticized, or whatever, that you would sneak away and go and play games on your cell phone or your laptop, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I mentioned that uh, that actually it's in several sutras. Number 20 is one of the sutras where it's mentioned of finding something else to divert. So if you've got unwholesome thoughts, like remembering that the bully picked on you this morning, then diverting that in any way would be more wholesome than planning the demise of the bully or the revenge. Getting out of the revenge, and then even when you're playing the games, there will be moments when you have revenge thoughts coming up about the bully, but then you go back into the game. Now there are basically several different kinds of games. One of them, I would put, in fact, most of the games wind up being a shoot 'em up.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons and the car chase things and that kind of stuff.
Not Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think so. But shooting
Well,
games.
you got okay, your sword and your hammers and all of that is the shoot 'em up kind of things. It's medieval war,
Okay, yeah.
finding enemies to defeat, getting
Yeah.
getting points or scores because you get new weapons or something so that you can hurt the avatars or the people on your screen. Those kind of thoughts are not wholesome. Also, they have the issue of competition with other peoples, the
Yeah.
avatars, etc., like that, and sometimes they even know each other as human beings.
Yes, this is what I did most of my teenager life, was
Right.
competition. Guys
So,
about
in
who's
that regard, those kind of games are unwholesome. Now,
yeah.
there's other kind of games that you would put into the qualification of puzzles. All right. So chess is one of the kind of games because you take pieces, you capture them, you kill the king, and all that kind of stuff. There is a kind of chess that does have the quality of a shoot 'em up. But then there is a more intellectual kind of chess where they present this situation with white wins in 3 moves. Can you figure that out? All right. Another kind of game, and it's a game, is on the YouTube when they will have math problems, math quizzes.
Oh, this
Can
is the
you
game.
solve those? In fact, that's one of them that I like to do.
Okay.
All right. There's also other games that are problem solving games like Sudoku. Those kind of games actually stimulate the mind and get you interested so that you can spend your time in an intellectually improving kind of way. But there is also time spent when you're doing an activity that may have a minor value to you in the present moment, but ultimately will have a long-term value. An example of that is collecting data about watts and centers and getting descriptions and photos and things like that that will be up on the internet for the benefit of others for a long time. And so that stuff is right down wholesome. And so it
Yeah.
depends upon the kind of game that you play. So
Yeah.
Sudoku and chess and math problems and that kind of stuff would be kind of somewhere in between. And then doing something to spread the Dhamma would be wholesome. And then you have that huge variety of games that are revenge oriented, are shoot 'em ups, have the idea of competing with other people, even if those people you're competing with are avatars. These games wind up being unwholesome. Now, the politicians will often complain, oh, the shoot 'em up games are the only kind of games there are, and they're always unwholesome. The answer to that is no. The shoot 'em up games may be new in a way, but volleyball is a kind of a shoot 'em up game. Basketball is a kind of shoot 'em up game, except you're shooting hoops, but you're doing it to impress people, to be better than they are, to show off, to give them an elbow in the face. And so these kind of competitions, sport competitions, were the old kinds of shoot 'em ups. And that we often come away from those games in an unwholesome state of mind. When you win, aha, we're better than they are. And when you lose, oh, poor me, I got to get revenge. I'm going to have to practice so that I can get better so that I can get that guy back.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, in a way, the cell phone and the laptops are new technology, but the issues are old human issues. And adding a laptop to the cootie, adding a cell phone to the pocket or kapau of the monk does not change anything, except that it looks like that really what's going on is time structuring. Now, whatever word that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa used for time structuring, Santikaro translated that into entertainment. And that he added actually a 5th requisite. The 4 requisites are just enough food, just enough clothing, just enough housing, just enough medicine in order to have a happy life. But now we have an issue of time structuring, and that's the issue that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So So the right kind of time structuring, because everybody has to structure their time. Everybody has 24 hours a day. Are you going to structure some of it in really wholesome activities of training the mind? That in fact, that's what the chanting is all about, is learning, is training the mind. That's why Achan Maitri is so insistent that you go to the chanting.
Yeah.
That at Watsu and Moke, I wasn't required to go to the chanting. But like I said, when I moved in to Wat Greensboro with Mahasamsa, he never really required me to go to chanting, but I did anyway. The chanting, going to chanting for most places is not required, but he, like I said, he was a dynamo. He is actually quite famous in all of the various hundreds of Wats in the United States for being one of the really good chanters. At night, when I would, if I was in the hall and passed by his closed door, can hear him in there chanting. That's what he did with his idle time. That he learned the Pali. This is something that would be good to do. So on your laptop or cell phone, listening to YouTube videos, learning Pali would be very wholesome thing to do with your time on the cell phone. But without any Pali books and without any cell phone, you wouldn't be learning Pali. So spending time learning Pali or learning the Dhamma, reading the Dhamma off of the books, etc., like that. Now, the problem that we've heard in the West is that people think that the Dhamma is all reading all the time, and so they become scholars. And that can be unwholesome in and of itself because they're not actually practicing
Yeah.
the Dhamma. So it's a matter of the mind state that you're in rather than whether you should have a cell phone or a laptop or a car. Car is
I
nothing but transportation. Go
I have a
ahead.
yeah, I have a feeling now that what you said actually makes a lot of sense. I have no schedule outside of the what for myself. I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of go off on vibes, which is not good, I think. Uh, so I think having a schedule but would be very helpful. But when you were first ordained, what was your schedule like? Because also there is having a schedule and then there is having no schedule. As in, you have absolutely nothing to do whatsoever. But that could be a part of the schedule. Just time periods of having absolutely nothing to do. Maybe I just not understanding it well. Can you explain that if you're seeing what I'm saying? Because I I can see what I'm saying, but I'm trying to put it together, piece it together a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have nothing to do, but maybe that's literally not like having nothing to do all the time. Maybe it's just having periods of time that you have nothing to do outside of the what schedule. So you're actually making your own schedule in a way. Because I have a
All
lot of
right.
time. In many days I
But
can have lots of time.
ordinary people have the same kind of problem. The guys who have never done any spiritual practice or had anything to do with Buddhism or, in fact, any religion, they all still have the same issues. Here's a use for that: days off, vacations, mixing it up, going out for a party, etc., like that is something that ordinary people do. So you could see then that ceremonies and celebrations and things like that at the Wat would be like going to a party if you have the right attitude. And also, days off would be like having in seclusion that you left your laptop and the cell phone at the office or something like that. Or in Thailand, you know that power, especially on this island, power is an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is. You can go for hours without any power,
Yeah.
or days, in fact, without any power or, let us say, internet connection. The question is, when that power goes off, do you go off? Or when the power goes off, you'll say, okay, because at Watson and Moke, in fact, in the old days when we were there, the town of Chaya didn't have any power in the 1980s. That only Watson and Moke had power, but that great big huge generator that was almost the size of a truck was only in operation from like sundown until 9 or 10 in the evening. I say 9 or 10, not because I don't remember the time, it was because you weren't sure when they turned it off. The guy would just say, "Oh, I'm going to go turn it off now," and that's what time they turned it off. All
Yeah.
right. But that didn't mean that the monks were trapped. But in fact, I remember several times on my way home in the forest from wherever I was in the Wat back to the Kuti, I got lost a couple of times. That was really good training, by the way, is just standing there until you get a sense of where you are. But most people, when they get lost and it's dark and they can't see, they panic. And because they panic, they can't see anything, and here they are traveling. I remember one time I got off the path. And so I stopped and I looked around, and pretty soon I saw the evidence of the path. And so I walked back in that direction, and sure enough, I got back onto the path. But now my eyesight was clear enough, late at night, completely dark, under the canopy of trees. I could still see enough to where I could follow that path and get to the Kuti. So this was really good training. But sometimes there was power in the evening, not during the daytime. I mean, it was really great to have a small fan that you could turn on in the evening to have some coolness then. But during the daytime, it was hot without an electric fan. But nowadays, people have gotten used to having the power, having electric fans, even air conditioning. And so when they do without it, they suffer.
Yeah.
But in the old days, Thai people didn't even like aircon because it was too different from what they had gotten used to. So getting out of your comfort zone is actually a good idea.
I know.
So that when you get out of your comfort zone, can you maintain your internal comfort rather than having your comfort depending upon the circumstances in your environment?
Yeah. So that's also part of the equation of leaving just for a little bit, because I have an extremely comfortable kuti. You know, I have a very beautiful kuti
Mm-hmm.
with city, with a fan, with pretty much a bed. I wouldn't say it's a bed, but like a nice mattress, and I have my laptop. I can use my internet phone. I pretty much have a place I could rent, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But um, but I could see myself a little bit too sometimes too a little bit attached to it sometimes. So I'd like to just see how my mind is when I leave, and
All right.
it feels difficult. I think it's good. Yeah, it is good it is a good thing to do.
It
The right.
actually is a good thing to test yourself. This is what Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa would mention in the sense of when you get sick, that's a really excellent time to practice. Why? Because when the body is sick, it's out of its comfort zone.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
maintain a mental comfort even when you're not in a physical comfort zone? And this needs to be tested and trained. It's a skill to be developed. You've probably heard my story about the Westerner who went to Tibet or wherever and was in isolation in his mountaintop kuti cut out of the rock, a cave or something. And he stayed there for 3 years, designed to get his mind cleaned out. And then when the 3-year period was over, they sent a car for him. He got in the car, and on the way down the hill, he asked them to stop the car, and he got out because he wasn't ready to ride in a car. He had not trained his mind. Now, actually, you could say that training one's mind could require riding in a car from time to time to get used to it so that you don't freak out. For instance, a cat. I have seen a cat that the first time that cat was in a car, it freaked out like that monk had freaked out. Let me out of here. And yet a dog, I have seen dogs get so attached to the car that when the car door was open, the dog got in the car, and then the car door closed for some reason, probably because of weak springs or something like that. And then the dog died of heat prostration because he was trapped in the car, and nobody knew the dog was in the car. But the dog loved that car so much. Okay, so where is the in-between? The dog died because he loved the car, and the cat can't stand the car. And the answer with you and me is that now cars don't mean anything. In a car or not in a car doesn't matter. That's how we need to train our mind. So laptop or no laptop, you're okay.
Yeah.
Cell phone or no cell phone, you're okay. Power or no power, you're okay. Internet or no internet, you're all right. I do know of, in particular, this monk was a new monk, Westerner, only ordained about a year or so. And he did not want to stay at Deepa Bhawan because he had to go walk around to find a place where he could get cell phone service. And so he left.
Yeah.
But there was other reasons for him to leave, and one of them was that Ajahn Po wanted to put him to work, and he wanted to hide.
I can also say about Deepa Bhavan, literally everyone after the retreat, the one thing they say is, oh, I don't want to open my phone. I don't want to look at my phone. Every single person, I just remember that. I don't want to look at my Instagram. I don't want to go to all that bullshit again. And then it just happens
then
because
eventually do, because you have the time structuring issue come up.
Yeah. And I can imagine that you could be in that mind state that whether or not you have your phone there, you still have that. Well, it's okay if oh my battery, I need to go put my charger in. It's okay if you don't have your phone or not, but I really think about the kind of training that required, because it's very easy to train when your phone is taken away from you, but when you have your phone, then the mind is very, very agitated and very, very, when your phone's in your kuti, or if it's locked up in a box in the abbot's room, it's easier when it's locked up in the abbot's room,
Well, you're pointing at something that's an important point, and that is access to equipment.
Yeah.
All right. In the old days, kids would have bullies, kids would have troubles with teachers. And let us say in the old days for you would go to your cell phone.
Yeah.
Other kids would have other hobbies that didn't have a cell phone. One of them would be to go play puzzles. I happen to have gotten into electronics. You've cut out, but I'll go ahead. And with electronics, I structured my time. Having ham radios and that kind of thing. It was a good education, and I had some good things with it. But it's also possible with the cell phone, because the kids have more available, that they get into these violent games that they play. and you can choose what kind of games or what kind of use you're going to have on your cell phone. But if it's taken away, then you don't have that opportunity. You have a different opportunity, and that is manage without it. And this is one of the reasons why they do take it